Hey guys, welcome to Not Again Podcast. How have you guys been? I hope you guys are doing okay. I hope you guys are doing fine. Welcome to my podcast. Welcome to my show. Welcome to Not Again Podcast. This is Gary here. How have you guys been? I hope you guys are okay. Right? I hope you guys are doing fine. Welcome. For those who are new, welcome. Alright, for those who have been here for at least once, I appreciate your stay. Welcome back. Hello. How have you guys been? I'm really excited when people came back and listened. I hope my excitement will transfer through this mic. Alright. Yeah. So it has been a great week for me. I hope you guys had a great week as well. Right. Like I'm in good mood for this week. I'm generally had a great mood for this week. I'm really excited. Alright. I would like to apologize for this late upload. Alright. I overslept. I'm sorry. I guess I had like. It has been a hectic work week for me. All right. Yeah, but it's really great. Like I don't know. I feel good about this week. I feel good about this podcast. I really feel about it good. I really feel very good about this week. Or I meet a couple of friends who are from overseas. There's this one guy. There's this one comic in Bangladesh. He came back. We say hi to each other. We catch up. It felt great. Right. It felt really nice because I haven't seen him for about a year. Or I really do hope that, and I feel that he's it. I don't, I don't know. It's really nice to see a friend that came back from overseas, and to know that he's really doing well. We get to know him through a mutual love for a comic and a podcast that we listen to. I'm not sure whether it's okay to say that we're a bunch of comedy nerds, but we love comedy. We do really love comedy. Alright, so I get to know through him. And okay, this is how happy I am for this whole week. Right? I'm not angry. I don't know if that sets the bar high or low for me. I'm not sure. Like this is one time I was in a music thing. Alright? It's a music thing for a local university. Students that wants to play music. Right, so my friend formed a band called the Sunburst Express. They have been playing for a couple of gigs now. And this time around they are opening up for them. My friend, the Sunburst Express played like a couple of music that is really like it's in the 19 like I do like the music that I love. It's a blues rock band. They play like Jimi Hendrix. They play Cream. They play Clapton. Alright, Clapton is part of Cream as well. They played Beatles, right after Sgt. Pepper's era. So they play music like this, right? They played cool music like this. The next band, an alumni for that local university. They played Journey. They played Def Leppard. Not my favorite music, but still along the side of rock, alongside of rock. So it's kind of like fit into the theme of the night, right? I thought the theme of the night is like a blues rock music. And the next band came out, which was the students from Singapore, from the local university. I'm sorry, don't sue me. From the local university, SMU, I guess. Students from there decided to play Westlife and Taylor Swift. Alright, I know they are kids. I know they are. But I do hope that this is not the music they are used to play to. I guess. I think that people goes up on stage and decide having fun of themselves. I think it's because it's like, I really do hope that's the case, or I really do hope that the phase will get passed by when people start playing Westlife and Taylor Swift. It's really weird. It's really incongruent. Alright, I'm not saying. Okay, I'm saying that they are bad music. Like, can I say that they are bad music? Can I say, or maybe I should not impose my views on music on them? Is that okay? Is that, I'm not sure. Alright, but it's really weird. It feels like going to a wedding at a church in a city. Alright, and you're wearing beachwear in there. You're wearing flip flops. You're wearing tongs for the Australians. you're wearing like a bikini, you're wearing bikini, you're wearing bathing suits. For guys, you're wearing like shorts and go topless into a formal wedding. Right, the dress code is weird. It's really weird. No one goes to walking around city in bikini and I don't know. Right, it felt incongruent. It felt weird. Right, in a wedding, in a restaurant, or in a church, that happens. I'm laughing my ass off. Right, because I feel like you're not. It feels weird. All right, you do not even proper. You don't even wear a proper like a dress code. I guess that's like, I don't know. It's funny. I was sitting around the Sunburst Express. I was laughing my ass off. I wasn't angry about it, but I was laughing, and I was laughing my ass off. It's really funny, right? Uh, like it's really interesting to see that happens, right? It's funny. It's really funny. I love them, but yeah. So that happens. That happens. It felt weird. I love the scene. Yeah. So that happens. So this is what happens for my week. This is what stands out in the week. All right. It felt great. Yeah. So this is like a great thing that happened. Maybe talk a little bit about this episode. In this episode, I decided to talk to Justin Hayes. I decided to, yeah, and oh, maybe not decided to. It sounds a bit false, but I talked to Justin Hayes. Right, Justin Hayes is a British comic that's based in Malaysia. He's a Malaysian comic now. Yeah, and he is a very Can I say that he's a very traditional comic? He's an interesting he's an interesting person. He has changed his belief in he's changed his faith from Catholicism to Islam because he married like a local Malay lady in Malaysia. To and he's very funny. Right, he's a very funny person. If you, I'm not sure whether there are videos of him online. Right, if you do check him out. Yeah, and when he does his stuff, I would like to first throw it out there that the second part of this conversation that I have, I don't usually do topics like this. I don't usually talk about religion. I usually try to keep out of faith. I usually keep out on topics about politics because I believe that the makeup of an individual goes beyond faith and politics. I think they are the ones that divide us all. I like to believe that to happen. That's why I don't know. Like I think I almost had a fight with a very good friend of mine online. He's based in the States right now. Because we do have a little different in political beliefs, but I really do love him as a person. I really love to talk to him, right? And we talk a lot more. That is not when we don't talk about politics, when we don't talk about religion, right? Yeah. So that happens. But I know that's not just him, right? I know the whole makeup is not just him. He's a very funny guy, right? He do have his own belief system. He do have his own faith in. He do has his idea of what his political idea, right? For me, I don't want to keep having conversations like that, right? So, but there's a lot of time. There are a lot of times when we are doing when I'm doing a podcast, conversation, goes anywhere, right? Recordings wise, conversation goes anywhere. So in this episode, right, it ended with a slightly political leaning. Faith, it lean on a certain faith. It lean on a certain political belief system, political belief system, right? Which I'm not condoning, not saying no to, but I'm not saying no to as well. So I would like to tell you that it may get a little bit, you may get a little leaning towards a certain political faith, a certain political belief system, and a certain faith, right? So, right, I will try to get this out there. I do, and I'd like to tell you that, right, there's things are out there. All right, I'm not sure whether that shows about what kind of faith, or I'm not sure whether this podcast may show like what kind of political belief I'm leaning to. All right, but do take note of that. All right, but do look out for that. But other than that, the first half of the first half of the recording, it is fun. It's fun to listen to. It's interesting. We talk a lot. We do talk a lot about other stuff instead of just political belief system. Instead of just talking about our faith alone, right? We don't talk. Yeah. So it's really fun. We talk about what we think about podcasting, what we think about doing stand up, right? And if there are new people coming up, yeah. So that happens. That happens. All right. It's a very fun podcast. It's a very fun conversation that we have listened. Me and my friends have me and Justin Hayes has a conversation with. All right. It's really fun. Do check them out. Do listen to the whole conversation, right? One more thing. I think I didn't do this enough. All right. Yeah. So do like us on Facebook. All right. I think I should put it out there. If you really love this episode, do like us on Facebook. All right. It's www.facebook.com/notagainpodcast. NOTAGAINPODCAST. You can look us up on iTunes. Rate and review if you think that's good for you. Rate and review. Subscribe us on iTunes. We are on Stitcher as well. Alright, do subscribe us on there as well. Alright, if you don't have iTunes, but if you do have iTunes, this is fine. Alright, iTunes is fine as well. Alright, rate and review us. Alright, it'll be nice to hear from you. It'll be nice, and then help us gain some more traction in iTunes as well. Alright. So yeah. So I think that's a little bit of advertisement to get out of the way. Alright. So do enjoy this conversation that I have with Justin Hayes in this episode of Another Game Podcast with Gary Dunn. Justin Hayes. Alright, enjoy. Okay, look,
closer or further away, or
I think it's all right. I guess
It's just this light is so shiny. Like I was holding it like that, and I was like, I'm blinding myself. And now for ghost stories with Gary Tan.
Actually, the ghost podcast, like there's this ghost story podcast.
Really?
Yeah, you have to look through Spotify.
I didn't think anyone would take that seriously.
I don't, but it sounds really fun though.
Is for like campfire type things.
I don't know. There's one where I've listened to where time travel, like parallel universe. It sounds really cool. Yeah, kind of where when there's this one place that's fucked. Like there's this one girl who can travel through parallel universe, and then what if that girl dies, the whole universe dies with her. So there's 9 versions of her, right? And when she wakes up, like the only time that she knows that which version is the right version is the number of strokes on her hands.
This is like ghost stories for string theory physicists. Because the most common layman man sitting there like, wait, how does this even work?
I don't know, but it sounds really interesting. It sounds really fun to do so. But then again, I don't know. It's like podcasts like have gone so wild when it comes to like.
Everyone's got to start a podcast nowadays. I'm doing a podcast. He's doing a podcast. She's doing a podcast. I guess it's just the most consumable form of media. Like literally wherever you put it up, someone can just turn on their phone, listen to it, and then you can do other things whilst you listen to it. And it's kind of like being in on someone else's conversation whilst you're alone.
But then again, the turnover rate of the like the different podcasts as well Like which one is the good podcast and just kind of like shut it down?
Oh well, I guess it really depends on the guests. Podcasting is one of those things where literally it lives and dies on the guest and the interaction, which is.
I always say that I don't know what to talk about. Like at the start, let's throw this out there.
Do you know what I do? I start talking to the other person, and then I just turn the microphone on midway through a conversation, because starting a podcast is the most awkward thing in the world, because you're like, and 3, 2, 1, go, and everyone's silent, and then they go, oh, we're supposed to talk. It's like,
but what am I going to talk about? What's that like the whole idea of like starting a podcast, like trying to have a chat?
I love podcasts in general. One of my favorite things about it is that it's either the ones I think work best are the ones where it's either just two people riffing off an idea, like, oh, did you hear this? And then they just bounce off each other until you run out of things to say, or until it leads down a very strange alleyway from which you can't return, and that's the rest of the podcast. Or the other thing is, like, it's just a really nice way to get to know more about people that you'd like to know more about. A lot of the most successful podcasts are the ones where you have the really big named comedians on, and they're talking to someone else they work with at their level that's a peer. So you kind of get an insight into what a friendship would be like with that other person, and you get to hear things that you don't necessarily hear about on stage. Like the way Bill Burr talks on his podcast is very different to his shows, mainly because he hasn't honed it down to a perfect argument. So you actually get to see a lot from him about how much or how little research he's done on a particular topic, and how much more he needs to do before it becomes a joke, and not just him going, I don't know what I'm talking about.
I don't know, but my favorite podcasts are the ones that talks about that have stories.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of my favourite podcasts at the moment is Bert Kreischer's. Bert Kreischer's, for those of you that don't know, is very big. He's exploded now. He's a really great American comic who is basically the perfect storyteller. All of his stories do exactly what they're supposed to do in the arc that they're supposed to. And all of the people he gets onto the podcast, they compare life stories, which is... it's a very difficult style of podcast to do, because you need to have people that have lived equal lives, in the sense that Bert Kreischer and Doug Stanhope can go toe-to-toe on drunk stories. That can work. But if you've got Doug Stanhope, like Bert Kreischer, and a sober Christian minister who's been living in his church for the past 20 years and not done anything else, that's going to be a very one-sided and dry back and forth. Like, how good could this go? How bad could this... Like, do you know what? The last time I was out on tour, I got so drunk I woke up in a different hotel. And the minister's just like, yeah, I wake up every day at 6 and prepare the church. Actually, from a comedy perspective, that would be a brilliant podcast. Just find two people of complete opposites and get them to try compare stories. All right, you can't see this, but Sam just pointed out me and Gary.
I'm sorry, I got a day job. I'm a little bit hard worker sometimes.
I don't even have to fucking talk. I'm the biggest laugh on this fucking show.
No, don't leave. No.
But I find that what happens if you have two totally different, like a Doug Stanhope and a Siberia piece, like comparing the most boring thing they've ever done.
Then you go into the depths of... Good Lord, we're being heckled by God!
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have
We brought up priests and God has sought out vengeance. Why did you pick the top of the building, man? Everyone knows the people at the top of the building are the ones that die.
Oh yeah.
The people at the bottom are the ones that can actually get out.
Wait, the Emperor is stuck at the attic or the basement?
Attic.
Attic.
Attic. That's why she had to tread carefully. Because if you're in the basement, you're not going to wake anyone up, except for the moles.
But they're still gonna find out, right? Like
Yeah. Well, inevitably they're going to. Yeah, you do know she was found, Gary.
I don't know.
It's not a spoiler for you. We were talking about because and we moved on to Anne Frank. Because I was saying when something bad happens, you should be on the bottom floor because you can at least have a hope of getting out. We're fucked here. We have to jump. That's our best hope. And he was asking if she was in the attic or the basement. I said the attic. That's why she had to tread carefully. Because if you're in your basement, you're not going to wake anyone up because there's no one below. Gary's following question is, yeah, but she'd still get found. And I'm like, I hate to break it to you, Harry. It's already happened. She's gone.
I know.
She's not coming back.
Look, I know that she's gone. Right? I know. All right. But
you were thinking like, oh, there was a chance.
hey, I still have hope in humanity. I still have hope in humanity.
The story being that she actually didn't finish her diary, so everyone thought she was dead, while the Nazis actually bought her a one-way ticket to Hawaii, where she lived the rest of her life in a tropical paradise.
No, what she went is that she went to the farm upstate. And no, she's just holding off. Like, she's up halfway, so she can read the second on the cliffhanger, the greedy bitch.
She's left it there so the book sells more, so she can...
And then you have another sequel of an Hollywood movie.
And Frank Diary 2, Diary Harder.
The next fall. The next
4. And Frank in the Chamber of Secrets.
I'm just trying to work on a Gorillas in the Mist pun.
Be thy name.
That's not gonna save you.
I can say the rest if you need me to.
I don't think that's the issue. I don't think reciting it is the issue. It's the rest of your lifestyle choices that guarantees you're gonna join me.
Yeah, but anyways, usually our start is like the first impression that we met in the boot camp.
Oh yes. Blimey, that was a long time ago.
It's like 4 years, right?
Yeah. If I'm honest, most of that boot camp is a complete blur to me. That was a weekend of... Because the strange thing about that was the week that I got married.
Really?
Yeah. And I then, instead of whisking my wife off on a honeymoon, went to a comedian's piss up and got drunk and stoned and played with sea turtles.
But do you manage to get like a proper honeymoon for a wife?
Yes, we've done like multiple trips since, which would count as honeymoons, and she's still like, take me travelling. So I don't know why I do that. Whenever my wife's the sweetest person in the world, but whenever I do an impression of her, I just end up doing the, he's not the Messiah, he's a very naughty boy. It's not my wife at all. She's a lovely human being, but that apparently is my version of the female voice for all of eternity and all of my stand-up.
Is it like is it of the impression of all female voice the same?
I'd like to think that if I was telling a story where it was important to get the person's voice right, I'd make an effort. But for the most part, just doing a slightly higher man voice qualifies.
but it's kind of fun though. It's kind of fun to have.
Yeah, it's an enjoyable balance. I don't know. When you're storytelling, the main focus is that as long as people can picture what's going on, that's fine. You don't need to use 1,000 words if you can use 3. Like, I went upstairs works better than I walked up the 42 stairs. My legs were getting tired. Blah 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 blah. Like, people get the concept of going upstairs, and at the same time, if I'm doing 2 character voices, like myself talking to my wife, as long as the other voice doesn't sound exactly like me, that's fine. That's enough.
I can't do impressions. I can't do it.
But that's it for a woman's voice. All you need to do is make it slightly higher so that they at least understand that it's not just one person going, hello, nobody, hello, no.
I think we want to hear Gary's woman voice.
Yes, Gary. What is your woman voice?
I'm not sure I can do that. Hi.
That's fine.
That's
Don't mock
fine.
it. Mine is a Monty Python voice. It's not even an impression of a woman's voice. It's an impression of a man doing an impression of a woman. It's an extremely layered. Yes, all right, but
Yeah, sure.
I have no need to practice that because I'm not chasing after men who are straight but secretly want to try being gay. So you have to soften your voice to at least stop their penis from
Don't
realizing.
tell Gary that. He doesn't know the plan.
I gotta leave now.
Welcome back to hashtag your job sucks.
And I think that there are people who's gonna be confused, like what's hashtag your subs is a podcast that I had.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was like, yeah, he brought it out as a cross reference, I guess. Yeah. But okay. But talking about talking about comedy boot camp.
Yeah.
How long have you done stand up to then?
Since that depends on what you're looking at. When I started performing, I was 18, so I've been doing comedy like on stage for about 7 years.
In the UK?
In the UK, I did it for 3. Out here, I've done it for 4, maybe. Actually, it's coming up to my 8th year, isn't it?
Is it?
I've been in Malaysia 5
Oh,
years.
Oh no, it's the Germans! Hi, it's mother!
9. Why are we doing German impressions to hide from the Germans?
We are not up here! we all know as we all know, World War II, they came from themselves first.
No, yeah, so I've been doing comedy about since 2012 since 2009 I've been doing it in the UK. Then I moved over here in 2012, which is where I kind of hit a reset button. Like 3 years of developing in the UK, when you move to another country, you completely have to reassess what you're doing because you can't make local references anymore, and you're just like, oh my god, I have to relearn a culture. So I've been doing it here since 2012, so that's about 5 years, 8 years. And then I was writing so I started doing comedy in 2009. I started writing comedy in 2007. My dad turned me on to the idea of writing packages for TV programs and sending in material for comics to, potentially buy off me. I've had a few uptakers. Not allowed to mention their names. But yeah.
Are they like big comics?
Quite a few, yes.
Quite a few?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I'm very curious.
When they take that, they change it a lot. So my original joke is more in my voice. And then when you see that joke done by that comedian, they've completely taken it and owned it themselves and put it more in their voice. The idea is still essentially the same, but it's quite interesting to watch. So I've been involved in comedy in one way or another for the last 10 years.
But it's easier to transit from writing.
Yeah. Well, I think the difference was that I just got sick of doing it for other people. And really, writing for other people and writing in their voice is fun because you get to think about how that would work, how that would... how that person should put across that point. But I've always liked storytelling, and that's what I wasn't doing, and then I just decided to get on stage and start doing that. And it's worked out quite well. Hooray! Better than you, Sam, with you.
Sam is a very low bar to compare with, to be honest.
Sorry, did you say compared to us? Gary, are you trying to
Compare
put you...
with. I say with, not us. So it's all right. Okay.
As long as you're not trying to include yourself on my level.
I smell a little bit of arrogance.
I've never seen a podcast guest talk down to the host so much.
hey, I can either just leave it in, right, and make it sound like it's very real, or I can just edit it out, right, and I'm still a hero.
Don't edit it out.
Just in case it was, I love how much I don't hate black people.
But still, I have the power in my hands.
Yeah, you can either pretend that I let that one slide, or you can just keep me in as my usual arrogant douchebag self.
Yeah. I'm still a hero anyways. I still win. Alright, I still win.
I'm just gonna be chaotic and show everyone here gay pornography while I wait.
Alright. Okay. But okay. When you write for other comedians, right?
Yeah.
Do you watch their specials? Do you watch their before you write? Yeah.
It tends to be when you write for another comedian, you're not watching a special to see what they've already talked about or what even the topic matter is. It's everything else around that. Like someone might be famous, or a set might go very famous very quickly. Like Jim Jeffries' bit on gun control might explode and go all over the internet, and everyone watches it and shares it and etc. But that's not what I'm looking at, because topics come and go. The hot potato at the time changes. It constantly is one thing after another. It's Trump. It's the next thing. It's whatever. Like it just, the wheel keeps turning. The main thing is the way that they did it. You have to focus on like what makes a comedian so successful. With an example with Bill Burr is that he always looks at a topic that has controversy on it, works out which side is the popular side, and then plays devil's advocate. And the humor comes from him making points that argue against the popular opinion in such a way that you're undermining it, but you're undermining it in a funny way. You're not arguing it to actually say, yeah, no, Trump is the best president in the world. He's not saying that to be serious. He's saying that just to irk that reaction out of them. And then he's giving alternative points. Alternative takes on an almost different level when you're talking about Trump. But you watch that style of writing, and if you were to write for someone like that, you kind of have to adopt that way of thinking. When you're writing for yourself, you know the way you think and the way you perform on stage, so you're almost allowed to think completely freely. Like if I saw someone fall over now, I've got an idea about how I can tell that story and what might be funny about it. Those are my personal opinions and the way I would break it down. To then write for another comic is almost to memorize that moment without any judgment, and then write it all down, and then look at it as if you're a completely different person. It takes quite a lot of work, but with particularly big comics, they've already got that style, that voice so deeply etched that you've got quite a strong guideline. If you were writing for a completely new comic, you'd be fucked, because there's nothing in there that you can go, well, I know exactly how that person thinks.
But then when you write for the new comic, you start writing for yourself, right? Where you don't have any idea of where, like...
Oh, no, I'd never write for a new comic. And that's not a snobbery thing. That's not like, well, he's not going to be able to pay me enough. It's the thing of, when you're a new comic, you've got to find your voice above everything else. And one of the biggest problems that you see at some of the open mic scenes is that someone new will come along, and then 20 comics will jump up at the end of the night and say, why don't you try this, and why don't you do that, and you should change this, and you should change that. Let the person work out what their voice... Like, if you tried to take on all the advice that you got as an open micer when you first started, you'd come on stage like some sort of schizophrenic Robin Williams, doing 9 different styles of comedy throughout your set, and you just look like an inauthentic mess. So writing for new comics is really difficult. You can give them ideas to work off, and you can certainly, like when an open micer comes up with a really interesting idea, but they haven't developed it at all, and they just come up with one cheap punchline, and they're like, "That's the joke." You can go, "No, there is so much more. That's a 10-minute bit. Expand it, expand it."
That's what. I'm not sure. This is one time when I was in, when I was in Melbourne, I saw this guy.
I love the fact that we have travelled less than 5 minutes by car from recording my podcast in the hotel to here, and there's no distribution of that airport is basically saying fuck you to a particular set of bars.
I get it. The ones I chose are usually the bad ones. I'm sorry.
No, if you didn't know, then
Yeah.
do you have an open mic here?
Yeah, we do.
Mondays.
The new material night on.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Show you.
Would they like to make it more bloody difficult?
We take a very Spartan approach in our podcast. You can't survive hell. You don't deserve a 3 minutes on a proper stage.
You've got new material? Well, we've got planes, motherfucker. Deal with the planes.
Okay. Like I was saying, there's this one time when I was in Melbourne, I saw this one guy who actually talks about his call towards this suicide helpline. And when you do the call, and when he talks about how he does the call, like, there's a punchline here, there's a punchline here, there's a punchline here, there's a punchline here, and yet I don't want to go in and say this is how you should write that joke.
No,
and I didn't give any.
The thing is, it depends whether the bit stands on its own or not. Like, there's ideas that you'll just come up with and you'll never give to the other comic. You'll just see them on stage and go, "That would have been a really nice tag," and then they leave, and you're like, "Well, I guess someone else will have to tell him." But I don't think it's so much that you need to tell people how to write. Just maybe give them little pointers, and if they want to use them, yeah, that's great. It works really well because then they've got an extra joke in their set. And you can kind of have that nice little moment of going, yes, it did work. Or if they don't use it, that's up to them, really. Ultimately, at the end of the day, everything you suggest to someone is purely subjective.
Yeah, I don't know. I've reached a point where I wouldn't tell anyone how I feel about their set. I'm like, the best I'll do is hey, good job, well done, or you are very brave. That's a sad one.
I find the most important thing about talking about someone else's set on a night is that you've actually done well yourself. There is physically no way you can go straight up to another person and be like, "You were shit tonight," if you just died. That would be a terrible way to start critiquing someone. I tend not to. I tend not to try to get in the way as much as I used to, because I really like to share comedy ideas. Like, comedy, this is one of the things people will listen to on the podcast, is people listening to the podcast will already be comedy nerds, and comedy nerds like to nerd out about it as much as they possibly can. And when someone's new to something, the last thing you want is an expert on it throwing theory at them, because they're just like, I just learned how to play B on a recorder. I don't need to know the history of the recorder. Like, I'm learning. But I think the only time you should step in and tell someone that their set didn't go as well as they think is when it's becoming dangerous. If everyone is going up to someone who's just died and patting them on the back and going, "Well done, great job," they're not having that moment, which is a comic everyone knows. You've had a moment, you've died on stage, and you leave the stage and you feel like shit. You feel like someone's ripped out your soul and just left an empty vessel there, and you're sitting there going, I didn't get any laughs. This isn't the point of comedy's supposed to be fun. I was supposed to feel good after this. Now I feel unloved. And that's what inspires you to look at what you did and get it right next time. So I think really the 2 points you should step in is if someone's come off stage and they're like, yeah, that was a shit audience. I didn't do anything wrong. Because then you need to turn around and be like, no, the audience wasn't shit, you were. Or the other time is when someone's got a load of those, good job, buddy, well done. Someone needs to come in at the end and say, this is why it didn't work.
I've reached a point where if you don't ask me, I won't tell you. Like if you think that your stuff is really shit, and everyone tells you that it's great, but you don't. I'm not sure that it's a very selfish way to deal with things, right? I'm not sure whether it's okay to say, hey, you know what?
Well, there's the fact that all of us as comics ourselves are developing. Even the most experienced, like Louis C.K. at the moment, is still developing. No, that's the problem with comedy for people with obsessive compulsive disorder. You will never get it perfect. You will tirelessly go on hating yourself because you cannot perfect the thing you love. But it's not selfish to be one of those people that isn't constantly pawning out advice. Because the reality is there are going to be moments where if you're one of those people are going to be coming up to you and asking advice about their set just as you're about to go on stage. And you we're getting heckled by drunk people and planes. Yay!
They didn't hear that. The podcaster started it.
But if you just take the approach of if someone asks me, I'll tell them, that's fine. I think the only time you need to worry is if someone's deluding themselves and they're going up every week and they're dying and they're just blaming it on the audience. That's really when. The only other time I can see stepping in is just to cut out really bad habits or point out things that could make the joke better. Like bad habits are things like addressing the fact that it's not going well and then you keep doing that. That's a terrible habit. Like that is one of my biggest pet peeves is someone's joke doesn't go well and they go, well, that sucked. I hope the next joke doesn't suck. And then that instantly means the next joke's going to suck because you've just told the audience that you're not sure whether it's a good joke or not. So they're going to think it's bad. And then they're, well, this isn't going well, is it? And they're like, well, we thought it was going fine, but now you've just told us it's not, so...
I know.
It's almost like... I know it's a thing that people do just because they're trying to play off the moment, but for an experienced comic, it's almost like watching another comedian go on stage and slowly try to convince the audience to hate them. It's the... Because when I started doing my comedy, my dad pointed out two very clear things to me, which I thought was probably key for everyone, is... Dun, 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 dun. I got a plane to introduce my points. What you got? No. The 2 points that my dad told me were like, if you're going to a show, as long as it's not a free show to perform, everyone in that room has paid to come and laugh. They are already 90% on your side. They've given away money they've earned with their boring jobs to hear something that you're going to say so they can release endorphins by laughing. So your job when you go on stage is to be interesting enough and have enough funny, valid or relatable points so that while you're talking, they do the rest. Where they just go, ha ha ha, I do that as well. I'm an idiot as well. Ha ha ha. The one thing you do which is probably why I tend to veer away from really controversial subjects, is if they're already 90% on your side, don't go out and be a racist, bigot, homophobe, Nazi. Don't do that. They're already on your side. Just keep them liking you. If your first opening line is "I punch women," you've just lost 50% or more of those people. And the only people that are now on your side are the closeted misogynists in the room. And you're not going to get enough of a laugh from them to make it worthwhile. It's not going to work. It's not going to be like, "I punch women," and the whole room is going to go, "Hey!" Women punching themselves in the face in the no, it's not. Oh my God. So when you watch a newbie go on stage, like, that's one of the bits of advice I like to give, is they're already 90% on your side. So if a joke doesn't go well, just move on.
Just plow through everything.
Don't chop another 10% off how much they're on your side by telling them you fucked up. It's a performance. It's a lie. Everything is happy and wonderful in joke land.
I don't know. I always say that jokes are always from the negative side of things.
But they're the positive relook at something negative. That's where the theory of comedy is tragedy plus time. It is. Something shit and horrible can happen to you, and a normal person will take a few months to process it and get over it. What makes a comedian is that same breakup, they could be crying, snot running out their fucking nose, begging their girlfriend to stay. At the same time, they're writing a bit about this in their heads. Like, why does my nose produce more snot than it's ever done in its life, whilst I'm trying to convince someone that I am the perfect soulmate for them?
I get why now. I get why that it's always so sad now my material is.
Yes. We don't properly deal with our emotions. Other people take time to deal with them. We just take them and turn them into a laugh instead.
That was you better.
My dad is dying, but at the same time, there's something funny in this. Even at my wife's nan's funeral, which was a very sad occasion because I really did like her. I'd only met her a few times. There was just funny things happening whilst we were at the funeral that you wouldn't pick up on. We walked the coffin from the mosque over to the graveyard where they bury all the bodies, and just everyone was wearing sandals because that's what you do when you go to a mosque. You have to flip. If you have to keep kicking shoes on and off, it takes too long. Everyone's wearing sandals, walking down this like hilly, muddy, rocky bit. And every now and again, because there's 4 people either side, someone's flip-flop would fall off. So they would bend down to put their flip-flop on whilst someone jumped in to stand in for them. And this was happening so regularly, it was almost like a tank track of just people. Just the front person would lose their slipper, the second person would move forwards, the third person would move forwards, fourth would go into third slot, and someone join in the back. And it's just this trail of people just constantly rotating whilst the one at the end fixes his slipper and runs back into line. And visually that's hilarious. But it's midway through a fucking funeral. So you can't enjoy it as much as you're supposed to. And that's the difference between a comic and a normal human being goes, fuck, this is a disaster. There's something bad happening whilst we're trying to get the body over to the grave. In a comic's mind, you go, this is hilarious. This is the highlight of the evening.
There's something in there. That's funny. I can heal myself from that.
I'm very sad we've lost this woman, but at least she went out in style. She basically went out in a military vehicle style progression to it was a human tank just rolling her in rotation to her final resting spot. There's not a better way to go out.
And you have an after effect for your 5 minutes.
And now I am done with it's another spot. Hooray.
I've done comedy and I don't know how do I like.
Tequila! I'm going to start shouting out different shot names every single time a plane comes over. Let's see how much of an alcoholic I am.
But oh yeah, yeah. Talking about alcohol, right? Wait. That means that you have quit alcohol. You've quit everything. That's not halal. That's not halal with.
It was actually more to do with my drinking patterns before I met my wife. At university, I was the equivalent of a human one-man surplus supply for a factory. I just chugged through an incredible amount of alcohol, and before I met my wife, I had a terrible relationship which damaged a lot of my friendships in the university, and I really went at it way too hard and drunk myself into a sort of mini coma, because I take blood thinners as well.
All right.
And the doctors has always said you could drink, just drink within moderation, and I took that to be like, party! And I kind of hit that limit and just went, I'll stay off it. And then conveniently, my wife was Muslim, so
it makes sense. It can't make sense.
There wasn't even a progression. It was like, well, the alcoholic should probably slow down. Oh, he slowed down. Now he's with someone that doesn't really drink. She occasionally lets me drink every now and again, but not anywhere near as like. I would do drinking games to close my bits at shows in the UK, because I thought that was a brilliant way to lead everyone over to the bar so we could just continue the party. Now I'm just like, no, instead of alcohol, I've got cigarettes, food.
Yeah, I can't know what happened.
Everyone's got a vice.
Yeah, and yours got to be full.
Just I had to take 3 or 4 of them to fill up for the other one that I had. Fine, if I can't drink, I'm going to work my way through everything else. Let's see which one of them kills me first.
But how do you meet your wife? Through university?
University, yeah. She had an opportunity to do an exchange program, and ended up in sunny Hertfordshire. I couldn't afford to go to the university I wanted to because the course fee was way too high. So I just went to the local one. Did like a replacement one. We met in my final year, her final year, although she was doing her master's, because she's older than me, although you wouldn't know to look at it. And I
always thought that you're older than me as well, so I'm like, and when you told me when you during the boot camp and stuff, you're 1 year younger than me, I'm like,
yeah.
Oh fuck, really?
Yeah, I look a lot older and sound a lot older. It's damage.
Yeah. hey, I was being told.
Most people take 50 years to put this much damage onto a body. I managed to half that time just by being a complete and utter moron. But no.
I remember there's one comic called Dan McGrath. I'm not sure whether you've heard of him.
I think I've met him before. Yeah.
He was like saying that, you know what, Gary, you should tell everyone, you should really acknowledge the fact that you look older than you really are. And I'm like, oh, a white guy told me that I'm older. I broke the stereotype. What other stereotypes do I have right now? I must know.
It's quite a difficult one for an Asian to pull off, though, anyway, because there's a lot of white people just sat in the audience going, shut the fuck up, you've got years and years of pigmentation damage to try contend with here, my friend. No, because we met at university at a mutual friend's birthday party. And it's a bit I do on stage, but I did not know she was Muslim. I really didn't expect that, because she doesn't wear a hijab. She doesn't really she dresses modestly, but then so do lots of other girls when it's the middle of fucking it was coming up to summer in the UK, and it's still minus temperatures. So you're not looking at a girl and going, oh, she's wearing a full length jumper and a pair of jeans, she must be Muslim. You're going, she's dressed for the weather. Like,
makes
particularly
sense.
seeing as she was Asian, I was like, and she was living on the students from abroad campus. You know, I was like, she must have come from somewhere pretty hot.
Mm-hmm.
So this makes perfect sense. So when I met her, I think it had already splashed about 100 quid on just a shot tray. And I was just going around offering it to people, and when they said no, I would just drink the shot that I thought they'd take.
Uh-huh.
So I was already like 30 shots deep.
Oh man, that's so
And
much.
I met her, and we got on, and we spoke, and we hung out, and like that mutual friend would have sleepovers at her place, so we'd all meet up and hang out in the living room area. And then I kept asking her out, like on a movie date, to potentially propose the idea of us being a couple, and she was like, no. Whiskey. I'm surprised that one didn't wake up at the sound. No. And then she was like, oh, I can't, but we're having a meal tonight, a family one. Do you want to meet my cousins in the UK? And I was like, yeah, what are you cooking? And she was like, this spicy rice thing. Like, what are the spices? Chilies and this and that and the other. Oh, right, okay, I know a brilliant wine pairing for that.
Oh.
I'll bring a wine. And she was like, no, we're Muslim.
Okay.
Oh! That's
At
how
least
you
she
do
tells
it.
you. There's nothing wrong in France and saying, "Oh, okay."
Oh, I'm sorry. It's cultural for me to bring wine to a meal. That's what I do. So I brought flowers instead.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
It was close enough.
Yeah. So you're saying, so basically, because you brought wine over, like
Yeah.
But is it hard to transit over? Like transit. It sounds like.
Not really. I mean, I've always looked at it from the perspective, like, my wife and I, when we first met, we dated and lived together in the same houses for like 2 years straight. So to save money as students, we'd just eat the same meal. So we didn't buy bacon, so I never ate bacon. Drinking wise, I rarely drink at all. I only drink on big occasions. So there's still that going on in the relationship, so it wasn't that much to... And those are generally the day-to-day things. Prayer is when you can... Like, there's a lot of people that say everything is a must. There's a saying in Islam, which is... It's actually in the Quran, which is nothing is mandatory. You don't have to do it, because if you're doing it because someone's told you have to, you're doing it insincerely.
Oh.
Like, if you're doing it because, like, someone takes you out of the cinema, slams you on the ground on a prayer mat and goes, pray, that's not a sincere prayer. That's a complete waste of time.
Can someone just take this out and just send it to ISIS?
Well, no. For ISIS, you need to send them the actual Quran. They need to read that thing. There's a part in the Quran that says there are certain sins that are unforgivable, and if you commit them, you're no longer a Muslim. You're no longer a Muslim because you're not following the way of being a Muslim. And one of those things in the list is terrorism.
Really?
Yeah, halal is the word for legal. So one of the things that you have to bear in mind is when you're doing things that are halal, like not eating pork, not drinking, and even drinking is so that you do not damage your body or forget your responsibilities. So you can have a glass of wine, theoretically, although most people just don't take it. But halal as well also means by the law of the land.
Oh.
So if you're in the UK and you're trying to stuff a teddy bear full of C4 and Semtex to blow up a church, you're not following the law of the land. You're not being halal, and essentially you're not being a good Muslim. So all these deluded people that think they're going to end up in heaven because of the things that they did for God, fighting off these oppressors and everything else, it's all basically guaranteeing they will never make it to heaven. It's guaranteeing it. And even the word jihad, which Americans love, they're like, oh, jihadis and these jihadis and these jihadis. And a jihad is an internal struggle. The point of it is to look at yourself, look at something that's bad about you as a human being, and work on bettering yourself. It's not a call to war. It's a call to be a better human being. So the people, the term jihadis is invented by the news.
Mm-hmm.
The term Muslim terrorist, if you follow the Quran, is technically an oxymoron.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
can't.
that
The
makes
second
sense.
you press the button for the C4 on the teddy board to go boom and wipe out a school, you've gone from Muslim to not Muslim. Literally, in the press of that button, you have denounced your faith. So it's physically impossible to be a terrorist Muslim.
All right. But I don't. But it again at this point of view, like saying from the outside, because knowing you from like being from Catholicism
Yeah.
to Islam.
Switching to Catholicism to Islam, obviously, like talking to people about it was quite a big thing because it's just around the time that terrorism is becoming a really big thing, and people are saying that Muslims are blah 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 and blah blah blah. And I'd read the Quran. I've read it. I've read 7 different translations of it, and I've read all 4 books of the Hadith that the Sunni Muslims follow. The Shiite follow a completely different set patterns. But I've read at least 7 different translations of each of those, so that I'm not missing out on, like, because some words in Arabic have like 3 or 4 slightly different translations in English, and each word that they use all have a similar meaning, but in that context they could have a different one. So I've really studied into this, and there's just so much in there that, like, you realize how much that religion is fucked up by the way it's taught to people.
Because
Like-
everyone has a very different
Well, because if you
interpretation.
take it from the Christian perspective of when I was growing up, we went to church. Now the little kids, when you were really little, were taken upstairs to do fun colouring in activities about today's sermon. So if it was David and the lions, you'd colour in David, you'd colour in the lions, and you'd say how David prayed to God so that the lions would not eat him. And that's very simplistic, and you get the general idea. But as you get older, every time that you attend, in any religion, all religions have them, they have the gatherings, and then they have a form of sermon where one person stands up and tells you about an interpretation or a way of looking at something that is in that book. But the problem with that is that person is reading that book with their eyes and their mind and their life experience. So every single time someone tells you, like, to do something because of your religion, and you don't turn around and say why, you're killing your own ability to understand your religion. So, like, when you're little, people tell you what to do, and then you just do it because that's what a good Catholic does. Now, if I'd been brought up Muslim, that would have been the same thing. Why do you pray 5 times a day? Because that's what a good Muslim does. No, the reality of it is that I've had, like, because I converted and I've changed religion at a point in my life where I'm able to cognitively question everything. And because I really did, like, if I'm going to change my religion and then live as a Muslim with my wife, I need to be able to answer every question all of my friends have about, what about this to do with the religion? What about this to do with the religion? What about this to do with the religion? Like genital mutilation, terrorism, fear of dogs, not drinking, not eating bacon, blah, blah, blah. I can answer all of those. You can eat bacon if it's the only thing available and you'll starve otherwise. It's just the general idea is don't eat pig meat because pigs are the animals where the most toxins that they eat transfer into the meat that you cut off because they don't have a good way of processing it. So you can get sick from that, which is a common sense thing. Don't drink. You can drink, but don't harm your body, and don't drink so much that you get drunk and become reckless, because as a Muslim you're supposed to behave in a certain way that's beneficial to society. And if you're drunk, everyone's seen what the town drunk does. He disrupts everything. Circumcision. There's a passage in one of the hadiths where Prophet Muhammad visits a king, and the king mockingly says, "Oh, you're the desert people that circumcise your penises." And he says, "Not all of us does." And the point of that is, circumcision is advised because it's cleaner, but it's not necessary. If someone's converting later in life and they've not been circumcised, you're actually going to do more damage to their genitals than good. When they're young, then just grow up with that. When they're old, that's almost life-ruining in a way, because all of your nerves are suddenly exposed, the ones that you've lived with for like 40 years, and they've got to deaden very quickly. But I read all these things because like I had an avid interest in it, and ultimately the more I read about it, the more it just made sense to me that for every line that someone said is absolutely batshit crazy and it's horrible and blah blah blah, there is another line that follows that they also don't quote.
I think it's because of the stereotypes that's being given out there.
The media's done a fantastic job of
Yeah.
that, which is that Muslims are evil.
And I don't know. Is it because of the backlash of like, I don't know. I've read up. I've tried to read up the Quran. But it's always like a small passage here, small passage there. I've tried to. I was in the boys' brigade, so I've read up like the Bible. Basically, I realized that like every religion have their good and their bad.
You have to look at things from the other side. You always have to. Like if you believe everything the media tells you today, then you are no better than a robot in a factory.
I think that in order to not just looking things at the other side, but just thinking about the point of view of, I don't know, I write jokes based on emotions. So I'm not sure does that mean that I'm a emotionally reactive person, but it helps me. It helps me. I can't write things that's out of my point of view. I can't write things. So if you're asking me to write, that's why I don't do political jokes, right? I don't do I got zero, maybe one political joke.
Because you've seen me, I'm a very storyteller-based person, and a lot of it is personal experience. But at the same time, what really drives me to write any of those stories is I'm a big, almost to the point of overwhelming sort of need for it to be there. I'm a big follower of logic. And so I can write political material very quickly, because half the stuff you see today just blows you. Like, you see it and you're just like, that is not a logical thing to be doing. Why are we leaving the UK leaving the EU? What is the benefit to that? We don't have to pay the EU. Yeah, but we get more money paid back into us by the EU than we're paying out.
But
so the money we're saving by not paying them, we're also then losing more money.
But that's your point of view. I'm not sure. Was I saying that? Is it okay? Is it okay to go?
But it's not. I don't think it's necessarily a point of view. I think there has to be a thorough thought for logic, which is that which is where both sides of the argument come in. Like, you could look at it and say, ISIS is an extremist religious movement, da 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 da. And that's one logical thought process, which is there is a problem with this religion, it has turned people violent, and those people are now calling themselves this and doing this. That's the logical progression that those people see. But in that sense, you're taking a very generic, very paint them all with a tar brush look, because my wife's grown up Muslim. There's obviously not a problem with the religion because she's not a raging psychopath. So what is the other side of that? The other side of that is there must be a logical progression that gets you to the point where you distort something that normally makes really nice human beings.
I think that it is because a little bit based on stereotypes as well.
Yeah.
And I'm not condoning stereotypes. I'm saying that sometimes stereotypes help, right?
They do for stories.
Not just stories alone. Like it helps us organize things.
Yeah, absolutely.
In our head, like if you see a tiger walking past by,
You
think that
you know not to stroke the tiger because
Yeah.
tiger is big man-eating animal.
yeah. That is a stereotype of tiger. What happens if that tiger is a vegan? Right?
Yeah, that tiger's actually been trained to live off green tea and
It's
and
a healthy
tofu.
millennial tiger. Well, yeah.
Although I imagine that tiger would come with hemp trousers and some beads round its neck.
I don't know. Like things like based on ideas alone. Like I'm not condoning. I'm not saying yes. I'm not saying no. For
Well, no,
but
it's
because there's a lot of information
it's the
coming in.
logical order to everything is where it's where normal human being to overly analytical mind that thinks way too much. That's where the shut-off point is. The shut-off point is you use quick one-tick answers to write things off in your head so that you can focus on other... Because so much input comes into your face every day. If you walk down the street, try remember the faces of every single person you see. You're not going to be able to. You're going to be able to give one quick detail about each one, and you're not going to be right most of the time. If you walk through Malaysia, you'd just be like, Malay person, Chinese person, Indian person, black person, Malay person, Chinese person, Indian person, black person. You've just cut it down to 4 races. The reality is the first 2 were Indonesian. One of them isn't Indian, he's half black and this. Or that person wasn't really Chinese, he's technically half Japanese and this. But you're just cutting it down to the quickest things in your head. So
But that's easy though. Okay, that's easy. That's easy to categorize. I'm not saying yes to it. I'm not gonna.
To have the stereotype in your head is a way of organizing things, and it's based off information that has been passed down.
Mm-hmm.
The reason in America black people are considered to be criminals is because of the whole, from slavery onwards, if you saw a black person on their own, that was wrong. And that's been because the black person was supposed to be working for someone. So if they're not with someone, they must be a criminal, therefore they must be dangerous. And then that's progressed to when slavery was abolished. For the most part, black people went back to working on the farms that they were slaves at. And the reason for that was because there was no system put in place. If you have thousands of people working for free, and then you free them all and go do a job that earns money.
You go what?
I do this comparison quite a lot, and I think it's a bit of an over-dramatic thing, but it kind of is. But with the abolishment of slavery, they made everyone slaves. Because slavery used to be, and it's a terrible thing, I will explain all this because black people, there's probably some black person sat the other side of the internet listening to this going, motherfucker. But the way to look
I got
at
a power
it
to
is
edit.
that there's been slaves throughout history. Arabs kept slaves. They enslaved loads of different people. Jewish people, ironically, had slaves before they were enslaved by the Egyptians. There's
The
lots
Chinese
of,
people enslaved their own people
Yeah.
to build up the Great Wall of China.
because they didn't even bother going outside the country. They were just like, well, there's enough of you peasants here. The feudal system was a form of slavery because basically the way slavery works is, say, in this beautifully stereotypical way, as a white person, I decide to make you my slave. Now, in order for you to live, I've got to give you somewhere to sleep, I've got to give you something to eat, and I've got to give you something to drink. Those are the things I have to do. But then, in return for that, I'm going to make you do every single job I don't want to do. Clean my house, do whatever, blah, 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 blah. What removing slavery did and moving into capitalism was, it gave everyone this hope to aspire and become perfectly rich and comfortable and blah. But the reality is, you're just you are a slave to the economy. Because now, instead of having somewhere to live and guaranteed food and water, you've got none of that. You've got to go get a job so you can buy a house to pay to put your stuff in, and you go work there every day, 9 till 5, and then you come home and you eat your food that you earned with your money by doing master's work. You come all the way back to your house, you sleep there, and then you go back. The genius trick about the salary work wage is you are working to be allowed to live. If
it's mind blowing now. It's tiring.
If humanity really wants to get past slavery fully, we need to start looking at things like a different economic system where people are provided houses. People are provided, even if they're not working, a basic minimum amount of money to live off. Because once you've got that stability, you can choose what you want to do and you can excel at it. And then you're not doing work, you're doing something you're passionate about. Actually, but again, this is all theory crafting. It's never going to happen. The economy monster has got too big. People freak out if by the end of 2017 going into 2018, the economy has not made more money than it did in 2016, there will be people on the news screaming that it's the end of the world.
Oh man.
Because that's what capitalism has led us to, is looking at the score tally on the board and going, we need to beat last year's score.
I'm not sure that it's okay to say that, but I think that's a good way to end. It's getting really heavy right now.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap up with a joke.
Let's wrap up with a capitalism joke. I can't do this. I can't. All right. I think I should say thank you, I guess.
I hope there was some funny stuff in there. If anything,
it was funny until terrorism came in.
I'll just finish with the Bill Burr thing, but I don't read. What do I fucking know? I'm a goddamn idiot. Go check it out yourself.
Don't follow me. I'm not your leader. All right. I suppose it's a thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.